Let's get
Hey
to it,
everyone,
man.
welcome
Big shout out to
into
Woj.
a special pre-draft, pro day, post-NBA draft combine edition of the Woj Pod. I'm Adrian Wojnarowski. This is, of
The
course,
GOAT.
Jonathan Gavoni, ESPN's NBA draft analyst. We are both out here in Los Angeles after a week in Chicago. The league's pro days out here this week, Jonathan. Getting to see a lot of prospects up close. We'll get to a bunch of them and a bunch of the important storylines and a lot of the uncertainty around this
All those
draft,
notes,
which is
man.
less than a month away now. But let's get and start with the one certainty, and that's Victor Wembanyama, who, as we know now,
The
will
absolute
go number
unit.
1 to the San Antonio Spurs.
7'5", 8
You and
foot
I both over
wingspan,
the
man.
last several days have seen the Spurs officials.
Dude's an
kinda,
alien.
I don't want to say strutting around, but walking, I think, part excitedly, part relieved that they've got Wembanyama,
Yep.
and now they are starting the process of preparing for what is really an unprecedented player in this draft. They have a new 50-acre practice facility, coincidentally opening up in August,
Crazy.
training center. The one thing, Jonathan, when people talk about Victor and any of the questions, he has size, he has skill, he has
bad,
great
y'all.
feel, great maturity. He doesn't have great strength yet, and there's questions at 7'5".
I mean, he's
about
19,
his body,
man.
how it will hold up. We have seen players of that size
Shet.
who have had issues physically. What is different about Victor and how he has prepared his body that might alleviate some of those concerns that teams had and that the Spurs will certainly be real cognizant of as they start his development?
Well, Woj, Victor was identified from a very early age as the likely number 1 pick in the draft.
Yeah, since he was like 16.
Already when he was 15 years old, it felt like
Crazy.
he was trending in that direction. And he surrounded himself with a team of people that would help him accomplish that dream. And part of it was having the right training staff, having the right medical people, constantly getting scans and, flying out to different locations to meet with specialists and make sure that he's on track, that he is going to be able to stay healthy. Hiring a very well-known trainer in France named Guillaume Alcaire from Pau Arthez. His team insisted on him being hired by the Metropolitans 92 organization. They did. He's working on a daily basis. So there's been a plan here to make sure that he maximizes his talent. He's able to stay healthy. And it needs to be said that he has not missed a single game yet all season. He's
Crazy.
played over 50 games now if you count all the exhibition games that they've played and, the national team and in the league and the Cups, G League Ignite. And so I think that says something for sure. And, and playing at max intensity in every game at the same time. So I think that, that's been the key. And going to the San Antonio Spurs, they're going to have a plan at the same time to make sure he stays healthy too.
Jonathan, the draft lottery last week in Chicago, I was a little surprised at some people being surprised, a lot of people being surprised at me calling him the greatest prospect in the history of team sports.
That's not a bad
he's going to
take.
be the greatest player in the history of team sports. I don't know that he's going to have the career Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Lou Alcindor, and then Kareem had. I don't know if he's going to have LeBron James's career. He's got a long way to go to win multiple MVPs, and those are the 2 all-time leading scorers.
Yeah.
But we're talking about prospect and where his development is right now as a teenager. To me, it's not even close. As great and as revolutionary as Lou Alcindor was when he came out, he didn't do the fraction of the things Victor does, but the game was different. Of course he did.
True.
Big men weren't playing out on the perimeter then. LeBron was an incredible prospect. His game wasn't fully formed as it would become. You have seen him play as much as anybody and from a very young age.
I'd still say LeBron was a better
what
prospect.
Do people have to understand about where the game is, how advanced it is, and how it will impact the league, perhaps almost from the start.
Well, just the
But it's
level of
close. I feel like it's
scrutiny that
close
he's been
as far as
under
a
from such
prospect.
a young age, and the ways he's been tested at the FIBA level in the under 16 European Championship, at the under 19
Like Luka,
World
he's
Cup.
he's
Coming
been in
for
the
these
top
G
league
League
since he
Ignite
was
games, which is
15,
something
16
that
years old.
really
So
a lot
he already
of
has the
players would
experience.
not have agreed to do.
And the first time anybody saw him play with NBA rules, the first time he played with NBA rules, and you saw the spacing, what the spacing would look like in the NBA on the floor, he scored 35, 37 in the 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, he knocked
Had
out.
like-
He could not
had
have
like
been
5
more
blocks
impressive. I mean, those type
in one
of
of them.
number 1 against number 2 showdowns, they rarely materialize, and they rarely live up to the hype. And it was extraordinary to see what he was able to do in Las Vegas. And I mean, he's just he's continuing to do it every single game. I mean, it's 20 and 10, 20 and 12, 20 and 14, leading a good league in points and rebounds and blocks.
One of
and-
the top
and
leagues
contributing to winning at the same time.
in the
And
world.
almost in every one of those, and you talk to people who watch him in practice, there's always 1 or 2 things people see, you go, I've never seen anything quite like that. And part of it is the size. It's 7'5".
7'5",
and on
man.
both ends
Good
of the
Lord.
floor. He's going to be the dominance defensively. It is hard to get a shot up around the rim when he's
I think he's going to lead the league in blocks as a rookie. Like, he's going to get 30-plus minutes instantly on the Spurs. You know what I mean? I think he's going to lead the league in blocks, honestly, in his rookie year. He's going to stun the NBA, bro. That's-
on the ball or even
I'm
off
pretty
the ball,
confident
how
in
much
that.
ground he covers on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, he
'Cause he's quick for his size,
epitomizes
too, so.
the evolution of the game, what we've seen the past 10 years or so with guys like Steph Curry.
He's going to average a triple-double.
and
I mean, a
Kevin
double-double,
Durant,
sorry.
and
Double-double
Luka
easy.
Doncic and Giannis and Jokic and Embiid. And, I mean, just to have that type of skill in a 7'5" frame with an 8-foot wingspan, with an incredible mind for the game and awareness and processing speed. And, it's extraordinary. We're talking him about so much. I mean, it's going to be hard for him to live up to it. But I really do think that he's up for the challenge.
We'll talk a lot about Victor between now and the draft, but where it gets interesting is really right away at number 2 with Brandon Miller,
I'd say I'd take
the Charlotte Hornets.
I'd take Brandon Miller over
I
Scoot.
think if this was purely on
He's more of
just
a polished
talent
prospect, I feel like.
projection to the NBA game at 6'9",
Yeah, like-
how Miller plays, the growth you've seen in his game over the last
His maturity as a
year
player,
and
too.
plus. My sense before anybody knew the draft order was Miller had overtaken Scoot Henderson.
But it's close, man. They're both going to be
as the
such
2 pick, if we
great
just were
players in
picking
this league,
purely
man.
on talent and game and how they project long term. There are more questions with Miller. What have you found here? Brandon Miller's done something a little unorthodox. Usually the player who expects to go second and maybe at worst third doesn't do interviews with any teams beyond 3.
Yep.
They might not even do 3. They might do 1 and 2 or just 2. He's talked to 10-plus teams, a dozen teams, and given himself access to a lot of people that then creates
maturity, man.
conversation
Willingness to
around
learn.
those interviews. What have you learned about Miller
Humble.
from the combine, about how teams feel about him, and the issues with of what happened at Alabama with his role that night with a young woman who was killed, teammates, certainly involvement of teammates. He's not been charged. He is not presently under investigation, but
I didn't know that.
it's certainly something that teams are digging into. They'll continue to dig into, especially those teams around 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, on talent, he should be the number 2 pick in the draft. And I believe if the draft were held tonight,
I think Scoot's going to be a better leader, a harder worker. No knock on Brandon Miller. He's going to be, he's gonna be in contention for Rookie of the Year. You know what I mean? This guy's such a polished prospect. His maturity on and off the court is amazing. I didn't know about that situation, though. That's crazy. I need to look into that more. Maybe that'll hinder him in the draft. Maybe the Charlotte Hornets, because I saw they conducted an interview with Scoot Henderson recently. So maybe they're going to take Scoot when Victor Wembanyama gets taken off the board. Just because of that situation, I need to look more into it. But I'd say Scoot would be a safer option for the second pick, just because he went to the G League Ignite. You know what I mean? Like, right under the NBA, the best league under the NBA, right? playing against grown men, NBA veterans, right? Up and coming superstars. And he's a great leader. He's vocal. He's fearless. He's willing to take on any challenge. I feel like having him and he's gonna bring a lot of chemistry. You know what I mean? Early on to any franchise, and I think the Hornets really need that. They need a vocal leader. They need someone who's gonna step in and be like, let's win. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's gonna bring that vocal energy, and he's gonna bring that winning mentality to the Hornets. And I think Michael Jordan's gonna pick up on that. Like, this guy has this kind of like John Morant, like kind of this dog in him. You know what I'm saying? You can see that. You know what I mean? His energy is unmatched with any of the players in this draft, and I feel like the Hornets are gonna pick him. I feel like it's pretty set that the Hornets are gonna pick Scoot Henderson, just because everything I said. He's such a polished prospect. I think Brandon Miller's probably gonna go third, but it's pretty close. I don't know. It's an interesting thing to talk about though, because they're both so good in their own different ways. You know what I'm saying? As far as polished prospects and their own maturity on and off the court. So. That's interesting. I didn't hear about the situation regarding Brandon Miller. Maybe maybe he'll tank a little bit. Maybe go three instead of 2. But we'll see, man. We'll see. That's what makes all this so interesting, especially with these top insiders, man.
He would be the number 2 pick in the draft. But there's a process that's going to play out here with Charlotte, with Portland. They have questions that still need to be answered. He went into his interviews at the NBA Combine and told them, the teams, I can't talk about the specifics of the case. I can't do the play-by-play of what happened that night. Here's a legal document that my lawyers have prepared. It explains, everything that you need to know. I'm willing to talk about any other topic, but not that. And I'm just not sure that that's good enough.
That was not received well.
No, that's not good enough for teams. So because they
that's not going to fully convince them. You know what I mean?
To ownership, in
fan bases.
And fan bases, exactly. And so
different parts of the country are going to react differently to that story, too.
Right.
Exactly. Right. So I just think that's not going to suffice for them. And on one hand, they're saying he did nothing wrong. He hasn't been accused for any crimes. He's not under investigation. And he's free and clear, in the words of his camp. On the other hand, they're saying, well, we can't talk about it, so that's where
that's all we
some
know.
Of that uncertainty comes from, and they're saying, okay, but why? Like those two things, they don't really.
I'm gonna keep it real, bro. The Hornets have already been through enough, man. Especially Michael Jordan, man. So just take Scoot, man. Just take Scoot.
When the time is appropriate, he will talk about it.
Save your career, Mike. Save your career, man. Don't risk anything.
Plan in terms of how they want to discuss this with teams. And then on top of that, people want to see him on a basketball floor too. And the complicating factor is that, he got ill in mid-April. He had mononucleosis, and so he has not really done much basketball activity since the season ended. And not that that's a deal breaker. Usually the number 2 pick or number 3 pick, they don't need to do much. But I do with Charlotte. I mean, they're a team that really values the workout.
That's what I'm saying.
And so it opens the doorway for a guy like Scoot Henderson to come in, conduct a workout, and just blow them away with his talent, because he does have that type of talent.
He does, man.
He's incredibly gifted physically. He can really shoot off the dribble. He's incredibly explosive, changing gears, finishing around the basket. And so if he comes in there and blows them the way with his talent, that might introduce, some ideas of, okay, maybe Scoot Henderson is the guy here, especially if Brandon Miller is not able to conduct a rigorous workout.
If I was the Hornets, I would take Scoot.
And I think for Charlotte too, we reported this a few weeks ago. Michael Jordan.
Not saying he's the better prospect than Brandon Miller, but I think he's a safer option.
Been in talks
for their organization.
Talks on selling.
Easier to build around, you know what I mean?
Of that team, but I think all indications are Michael Jordan and Mitch Kupchak, their general manager, they'll be making this pick. They'll be making this pick in June, and it'll be ultimately their decision on how to proceed. What's interesting, Jonathan, Portland at 3, Houston at 4, Detroit at 5, even Orlando at 6. I think Orlando is the one team.
If Portland's 3rd, I'd say if Brandon Miller is still on the board, it is a lock to take him. And if you're Portland, Because you already have Dame, superstar point guard. You know he's not leaving Portland. You know what I'm saying? He's already said that publicly. We all know that. So I think adding a 6'9", two-way killer, and Brandon Miller already filled out maturity-wise and physically, and he still has a lot to improve on. Everyone's draft class does, but I feel like as polished as he is at such a young age. And I can say that about Scoot and Wemby. You know, these top 3 picks, man, they're all so polished already. And I feel like the Trailblazers are really going to benefit and off of Brandon Miller. And I think already having an established superstar point guard, NBA veteran point guard, and Damian Lillard, I think it's better for Scoot to go into a situation with a young team in the Charlotte Hornets, and be a leader. You know, and it was especially prevalent to see that in the G League. You know, he likes being the leader, the alpha dog. So I think he's going to have a better situation in Charlotte for sure. I think Brandon Miller going third is going to be the perfect situation for him going into Portland, and him being around Dame, I think that's going to be perfect for him. They're going to be a 1-2 punch, you know what I mean? And it's going to be cool to see them two develop alongside one another. I think his confidence is going to go up a lot under Damian Lillard. He's going to bring him under his wing. And I think, you know, there are a bunch of NBA veterans that they've accumulated on that team that are going to help him grow and polish and develop, you know what I'm saying, and mold him into a you know, an NBA ready, you know, starter and someone who can efficiently produce on both ends. So I think if you're Charlotte, take Scoot. If you're Portland, Brandon Miller's your guy. I think that's the perfect scenario. I don't need to elaborate on the Spurs. We already know they're going to take Victor. So, but yeah, I think those 3, if they go in those particular spots, it's gonna work out perfect for those teams. All those teams deserve an A grade, A draft grade if they pick all those guys in that order. So, but you can't go wrong with any of them.
Just, you know, you were seeing them stockpiling really good young talent that's fitting together. They've got 2 picks in the lottery. Portland's in this in-between place where they hit last year's pick with Shaedon Sharpe. He had a really productive freshman year.
He had an amazing season.
Having
man.
not played basketball the year before Kentucky, you see the flashes of a really, really good wing player. They are trying to still build around Damian Lillard, and certainly they want to re-sign Jeremy Grant. But
another
you know,
really good two-way athletic player.
If there's a deal out there that could bring them back, I think, pretty elite player at 3.
It's got to be Brandon Miller.
Maybe
man.
that's Anthony Simons and the pick. I think these teams will talk about it. 3, Houston at 4, who again another young team that wants to be better.
I think Houston would honestly take one of the Thompson brothers. I think Amir Thompson would be perfect for Amen Thompson. I think he's gonna fit in perfectly with the Rockets. They have such a young squad. He's gonna be able to develop really well around them. I think he's just the perfect guy. I feel like he already knows Jalen Green, Josh Christopher, you know, and all those guys. I feel like he's really gonna polish and really, really, really well there, and he's gonna help age well with all these young guys and develop chemistry early. So, and I guarantee you, he already knows a decent bit of the team already. Just knowing how young they are and how close in age they are, and they probably all know each other. They probably all know him. So, especially since he played at OTE, you know what I mean? That's a big reason why I know him and have seen his game many times, and seeing how polished he is because he went to OTE where, you know, they're able to broadcast these players in a national light and for so many people to see. You know, they have their own arena. You know, it's like the G League, if not more prevalent popularity-wise than the G League as far as the media, fans, and scouts can just pull up to the games. You know, overtime's a huge deal. So I think Amen Thompson is the perfect fit for Houston.
Space. They're interested in James Harden. They want to make a jump. And then Detroit at 5.
Yeah, we're going to stop the video at 5, y'all. If y'all want me to continue reacting to this in another video for the rest of the lottery, y'all let me know. But we're going to stop at 5.
There'll be a lot of trade chatter around those teams. There'll be a lot of conversations. But especially at 3, Jonathan, you have got to get back a really, really elite player to trade out the 3rd pick in a draft that most agree.
Oh, they think they're going to trade.
How it looks now is a 3-player draft. Now, 5 years from now, we may say we missed on one of those. It's 2 other guys.
Oh, it's always
right
the case.
Now, a
Every
3-player
year.
draft. Portland, to me, is really in a lot of ways, I think the draft starts with them.
Definitely. I mean, historically speaking, it's very rare for a top 3 pick to be traded. And they're going to need something to absolutely blow them away in order to trade that pick, is what I've been told. And right now, it doesn't look like that trade is on the table. And I think that they're also very excited.
Wemby and Scoot are untouchable.
To pick, for them to move up on lottery night.
I can't see them trading.
They very well could have slid back to 7. It just puts them in a great position where they can add a player, Scoot Henderson or Brandon Miller, who can play a role for them next year and help them win games.
Immediately.
That is their goal, absolutely, is to win games next year with Damian Lillard. But also prepare for, 2 or 3 years down the line when Damian Lillard is not, the focal point of the franchise, and you have the ability to hand the keys off to a Shaedon Sharpe.
You have Anthony Simons,
Scoot Henderson, or Brandon Miller. I mean, it's honestly
Jeremy
the best
Grant,
of both worlds for them.
Shaedon
I
Sharpe,
don't see a trade out there that
they have such a young
that's going
future,
to
man.
make sense for them.
I think Brandon Miller would fit in perfectly.
I don't know that there's
Very
any
well
teams,
said.
and I look at the 30 who you could say next year, hey, they're trying to tank. They're not going to spend this offseason really trying to get better, bring in veterans. Like, I think, and part of it is the draft next year. There's no Victor's not. There may never be another Victor, but there's not.
Probably not.
I think because of the play-in
for a long time.
I think you've got 2 play-in teams in the conference finals. I think that impacted it. You saw those teams. Teams are seeing that there's a little more parity in the league right now, and there's opportunity to get in the playoffs and advance. And I think a lot of teams feel like that race to the bottom, I think, makes less sense right now. And it's what the league wanted. They wanted teams doing this. But I do think it's impacting teams unloading really, really good veteran players for a pick or for another young player. Now, we're going to see teams having to start reshuffle their payrolls with the new collective bargaining agreement, that second apron. You're going to see salaries moving around, players moving around. Teams are going to have to start making hard decisions on their rosters. But, again, if you're Portland, it is just an interesting rail. These 2 rails they're trying to ride of not being rash and doing something very short-sighted for Lillard versus still the long view of you better get value at number 3. Jonathan, we talked about this week the pro days in L.A. There was a combine in Chicago last week. Not a lot of the elite players are out on the court playing. Teams aren't getting to see a lot of them. Pro days are different. Now you're seeing lottery-level players in the gym. Now, they're not playing 5-on-5. They're not really doing much more than drills and shooting. But for a lot of GMs, decision makers, it's a chance to see what kind of condition guys are in, see them up close, and I think get a better sense between. There's really the last time they'll see them on the court before the draft. I don't think these have a great deal of value for a lot of players, but who are a couple this week out in LA when you look in the lottery and say there's something they can get out of this week, there's something these guys need to show teams?
Yeah, there are certain types of players that I think the pro day setting can help. For example, Arkansas's Anthony Black.
That dude's a killer,
he's a player who does everything on the basketball court. He's a tremendous defender. He's a tremendous passer.
Another
He's got a
two-way
great feel for the
killer,
game.
bro.
He brings a winning
So much
spirit
potential
that every organization would want. But there are real question marks about his jump shot and his overall scoring ability. And is he going to be able to
He's
keep
going to develop that.
defense is honest enough by being on the floor? And I thought he helped himself in Santa Barbara at the WME Pro Day, just going through drills and knocking down shots, making a volume of them consecutively.
Yeah, I'm not
You
worried
come
about
in,
that.
You're expecting Anthony Black.
He's
going
gonna
to
develop what he needs to develop. I'm
And
not
so
worried about that.
He makes enough in a row where you're like, okay, well, maybe there's a chance there. Like maybe he does have the ability to develop that part of his game. He's obviously been working on it very hard.
That's what I'm saying.
You see that in the mechanics.
And he's going to continue to work on it year by year.
The work that he's put in, and that's encouraging if you're a team drafting in the top 10.
Cam Whitmore from Villanova up in Santa Barbara at that WME Pro Day. He was injured last year for part of the season early and certainly impacted Villanova's season. That was the first time I had seen him up close, and he is a physical specimen. I mean, he looks like
Yeah, he looks filled out already.
ready-made. One and dones typically don't look physically like him.
Him and
you see
Scoot
his versatility on the
looks
floor.
so like
You've
filled
got
out
him
already
right
for how
now
young
to
they are.
Indiana at 7 in your mock draft, and he's certainly a team that has a very good backcourt offensively. But you could see this is a real two-way player, but a physical defender. He was impressive to me. I think Jay Billis has him even higher. Jay saw certainly a lot of him during the college season too. I think just he was the rare player who, just seeing him physically on the floor, it stopped a lot of people in the gym. I mean, he just looks different.
That's what an NBA All-Star looks like.
Yep.
That type of build, that type of size.
That's what gets
that type
scouts
of
drooling, man.
explosiveness. And
Is
to see him shoot the ball
being that polished
the way
already.
he did was encouraging. You see the way that he finishes around the basket. That's impressive. Again, it's a 1-on-0 setting. It's not directly translatable to basketball court, but you see the talent popping. So guys like Cam Whitmore,
he's
that does
explosive.
happen. I think at the same time, Jalen Hood-Schifino from Indiana. It's very similar in terms of the physical tools, the size, the length, the athleticism.
We'll stop at 20.
You see the improved shooting ability. You see the explosiveness, the way that he changes speeds, the way that he can get to
There's
the rim.
so many good prospects in this class, man.
When NBA teams know what an all-star
Almost every
level
prospect
player
is
looks like
is
physically,
explosive,
and
man.
when they see Jalen Hood-Schifino, they
crazy.
can see the pathway for him to get there down the road. They see the upside, and so that's those type of guys. The pro day setting definitely helps.
Jonathan, who else is going to be able to help themselves?
All right, we'll stop it here, y'all. They're gonna get into another question. So, thank you guys so much for watching, man. Hope y'all enjoyed. I learned a lot from the first 20 minutes of this video. I'll probably watch the rest, unless y'all want me to record the rest for y'all. But yeah, man, that's gonna do it. Shout out Woj, the goat, and the the head Draft Express guy. They're both very knowledgeable, top insiders. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.